Welcome, beautiful damsels. The most dangerous woman is the one who has learned to live without needing anyone's approval. In a world that thrives on conformity, the rise of the Sigma female has unsettled the very foundations of modern gender dynamics. These women are independent, self-sufficient, and unapologetically authentic, qualities that inspire awe, admiration, and sometimes deep resentment. But why do so many modern men find themselves at odds with this mysterious and elusive archetype? The fact is, while 97% of men may claim to hate Sigma females, what they truly fear is the untamed power she represents, a woman who refuses to play by society's rules and can't be tamed or defined. This is not just another story about independence. This is about why the very essence of a Sigma female threatens to unravel long-held beliefs about masculinity, dominance, and control. Prepare to dive into the core of this modern dilemma where attraction and intimidation collide. Number 1. A dangerous combination of intelligence and confidence. Sigma females possess a rare combination of intelligence and confidence that can be overwhelming for many men. Intelligence in a woman is often admired on the surface, but when it's combined with an unshakable confidence, it shifts from being a charming trait to something much more intimidating. The Sigma female doesn't just have knowledge, she knows how to wield it, and she's not afraid to do so. She doesn't shrink to make others feel comfortable, and she doesn't dilute her opinions to be more palatable. She speaks with authority, moves with purpose, and doesn't seek validation for what she knows. This makes men uncomfortable, because they are accustomed to women who, even if intelligent, may still feel the need to soften their presence or avoid outshining others. But a Sigma female operates differently. She doesn't look for approval, and she doesn't downplay her intelligence to fit societal expectations of femininity. Instead, she owns her intellect in a way that leaves no room for insecurity to hide. And that's where the real issue begins. Men often feel a deep-seated pressure to be the more knowledgeable or more capable partner. But when faced with a woman who is not only intelligent but deeply aware of her worth, it upends that dynamic entirely. Confidence in men is often tied to the roles they play, whether it's being the protector, the decision-maker, or the one in control. But when a Sigma female enters the picture, her self-assurance makes it clear that she doesn't need someone to guide her or protect her. She's already secure in herself. This can provoke insecurity in men not because they dislike intelligence in women, but because the Sigma female's confidence forces them to question their own sense of control and relevance in the relationship. It's not just her intellect, it's the way she uses it to navigate the world without seeking permission or acceptance. Men find themselves not knowing how to interact with a woman who doesn't need their validation to feel fulfilled or successful. And when she holds her ground, unmoved by their attempts to assert dominance, it feels like a challenge they're unprepared for. She doesn't ask for respect, she commands it, and that in itself can be unnerving. This unwavering combination of intelligence and confidence makes the Sigma female a force to be reckoned with, and for many men, it's easier to resent what they don't understand or feel threatened by than to face their own vulnerabilities. Number 2. An unshakable moral compass. Sigma females are guided by their own moral compass, one that isn't swayed by popular opinion, societal expectations, or external pressures. They live by a set of principles that they have defined for themselves, and they refuse to compromise on them no matter what. This makes them incredibly difficult to manipulate or control, which is a key reason why many men find them frustrating or even intimidating. Most people, whether consciously or unconsciously, bend their values to fit in with the world around them, especially in relationships. They make compromises, adjust their opinions, or go along with certain behaviors to avoid conflict or gain approval. But a Sigma female won't do that. If she believes something is wrong, she will stand firm, even if it makes others uncomfortable. She won't be talked into anything that goes against her core beliefs, and this is what sets her apart. Men often find this unshakable sense of morality difficult to handle. They're used to a degree of flexibility in relationships, a certain level of give and take, especially when it comes to values or opinions. But with a Sigma female, there is no bending to fit someone else's ideals or expectations. She won't be coerced, guilt-tripped, or persuaded to compromise on what she believes is right. This level of integrity can feel threatening because it takes away a common tool people use in relationships: leverage. When a man realizes he can't sway her with charm, influence, or emotional manipulation, he's left in a position where he has to confront her values head-on. And if his values don't align with hers, it's clear that she won't stick around to accommodate him. This lack of malleability makes the Sigma female a challenge. Men who rely on negotiation or manipulation in relationships often feel powerless around her because she simply doesn't play the game. Moreover, the Sigma female's moral strength can come across as arrogance to those who aren't used to someone so rooted in their beliefs. Her certainty in her values can make others feel judged or inadequate, especially if they haven't taken the time to develop such a clear sense of right and wrong themselves. Instead of seeing her firmness as a positive trait, they may resent her for making them feel small or unsure of themselves. Men, especially those who pride themselves on being leaders or decision-makers, find this particularly hard to accept. They're used to being in control, or at least having some influence. But with a Sigma female, their usual methods of persuasion fall flat. Number 3, the unnerving silence of independence. Sigma females are defined by their fierce independence, and it's this trait that unsettles many men. Unlike most people who seek companionship or validation from others, Sigma females are completely comfortable being on their own. They don't rely on external sources for fulfillment, whether it's in friendships, relationships, or societal expectations. This ability to thrive in solitude gives them a sense of freedom that is rare, and it's exactly what makes men uneasy. For many men, part of their confidence in relationships comes from being needed. They expect women to rely on them emotionally, financially, or socially. It's how they establish their role and sense of purpose. But when faced with a Sigma female who doesn't require that kind of support, they lose that foundation. She doesn't need someone to complete her. And this shatters the traditional idea that a man should be the provider or protector. Her self-sufficiency is a quiet but powerful statement. She chooses to be with someone because she wants to, not because she needs to. That distinction can be threatening to a man who's used to women depending on him. The Sigma female's independence isn't just about being self-reliant in practical ways, like handling her finances or making her own decisions. It's deeper than that. It's an emotional independence that makes her seem untouchable. She's perfectly fine with solitude, and this lack of emotional neediness leaves men unsure of how to approach her. They can't use the usual strategies to win her over, like offering protection or comfort, because she's already in control of her own life. She doesn't crave attention or validation, which makes her hard to reach on a superficial level. What's even more unsettling for men is that her independence comes with a quiet confidence. She moves through the world with a sense of purpose and certainty that doesn't require external affirmation. Men are often used to women who seek validation, whether it's through compliments, emotional support, or shared decision-making, but the Sigma female doesn't look outside of herself for that. This can leave men feeling like they have no role to play in her life, no way to offer something she lacks. To many men, this kind of independence can feel like a rejection, even if it's not intended to be. It's not that the Sigma female is rejecting men outright. It's that she doesn't need them in the traditional sense. And when a man is used to being needed to feel valuable, encountering a woman who doesn't operate that way can make him feel inadequate or even irrelevant. This dynamic often leads to frustration, because men want to contribute, to matter. But the Sigma female isn't looking for someone to fill a void in her life. Her independence also forces men to confront their own insecurities. When a man sees a woman so at peace with being alone, it highlights the fears and doubts he might have about his own self-worth and importance. It becomes clear that the Sigma female isn't dependent on anyone to feel whole. And this stark contrast can make men question their role and whether they can live up to her level of emotional strength. Instead of being empowered by her independence, many men feel threatened by it because it challenges the traditional roles they've been taught to fill. Number 4, refusal to play the game. Sigma females don't play by the usual societal rules, and that's exactly what makes them stand out, and why many men struggle to deal with them. They don't engage in the traditional back-and-forth games that often define modern relationships. Sigma females refuse to participate in the unspoken rituals of flirting, mind games, and attention-seeking behavior. This refusal to play the game leaves men feeling confused and often powerless because the usual tactics that work on other women fall flat with a Sigma. Most people, both men and women, are used to a certain level of predictability in romantic dynamics. There's an expectation of subtle manipulation, a dance where both sides give and take in a somewhat calculated way, whether it's a bit of playing hard to get, fishing for compliments, or using emotional cues to get a reaction. Sigma females don't engage in any of this. They're straightforward and direct. If they're interested, they'll show it, but not in a way that feeds a man's ego. And if they're not, they won't pretend otherwise just to keep someone around. This directness throws men off because it disrupts the familiar patterns they rely on to navigate relationships. A Sigma female won't fawn over someone to get attention or play coy to keep someone interested. She's not going to drop hints or use emotional manipulation to get a man to chase her. Instead, she operates on a level of honesty and clarity that can feel jarring. For men used to women playing the typical push and pull, a Sigma female's refusal to engage in these dynamics is like stepping into unfamiliar territory. They don't know how to read her or what to expect because she doesn't follow the traditional script. What makes this even more unsettling for men is that Sigma females are often completely content being on their own. They don't crave validation through male attention, and they won't bend their behavior just to keep someone interested. This makes it hard for men to get a handle on how to win her over because the usual methods simply don't apply. A Sigma female won't be impressed by someone trying to show off, and she won't play into any of the typical emotional traps that keep others hooked. Men can't easily predict or manipulate her reactions, and that unpredictability is deeply frustrating for those who rely on the traditional relationship game. The reality is, many men enjoy the chase, the thrill of winning a woman over through a series of calculated moves. But the Sigma female doesn't offer that chase. She's not playing hard to get. She's simply not interested in playing at all. If she likes someone, it's genuine, and if she doesn't, she won't string them along just to keep their attention. This lack of game playing, while refreshing to some, leaves others feeling like they've lost control of the situation. In fact, the Sigma female's indifference to the typical romantic games can be perceived as disinterest or worse, as a rejection of men altogether. This isn't the case, but because she doesn't engage in the usual emotional back and forth, it can feel like she's not giving men the emotional wins they're used to. And that leaves them feeling unsettled because they no longer have the upper hand. It's not that she's cold or unfeeling, but her refusal to play into the typical patterns of validation means that men can't easily gauge how she feels, and that can be disorienting. For many men, the game is about control, even if they don't realize it. It's about knowing how to provoke certain reactions, how to read emotional cues, and how to steer the interaction in a way that benefits them. But with a Sigma female, none of that applies. She refuses to be part of any emotional manipulation, intentional or otherwise, and that makes men feel like they've lost the control they're used to having in relationships. Her clarity and refusal to engage in emotional games make her a mystery, one that many men don't know how to solve. Number 5, they force men to confront themselves. Sigma females are highly focused on their goals, and this relentless drive can be intimidating to many men. She's not distracted by the usual social pressures or the need to please others. Instead, she channels her energy into achieving what matters most to her, whether it's her career, personal growth, or a passion project. This tunnel vision can leave men feeling sidelined, unsure of how they fit into her life, because her ambitions always come first. Unlike others who may seek balance or prioritize relationships above all else, a Sigma female knows that her success and fulfillment depend on staying true to her path. This single-minded dedication isn't about being selfish. It's about understanding that she can't compromise her goals for anyone. Men who are used to women making sacrifices for relationships often feel threatened by this level of focus. They want to be the priority, but with a Sigma female, they have to accept that her ambition will always be a key part of who she is. Her ability to stay driven and not be swayed by emotional demands or societal expectations forces men to confront their own insecurities. She doesn't pause or slow down for anyone, and that leaves them struggling to keep up. Number 6, they don't need validation from the male gaze. Sigma females don't rely on the male gaze for validation, and that completely disrupts the dynamics that many men are used to. In a society where women are often encouraged to seek approval through appearance, charm, or behavior, the Sigma female stands apart. She doesn't need to be seen, admired, or desired by men to feel secure in herself. This lack of need for external validation can be both confusing and threatening to men who have been conditioned to believe that their attention and approval are essential to a woman's self-worth. Most women, consciously or not, are taught to measure their value based on how others perceive them, especially men. The compliments, the attention, the approval, it's all supposed to confirm their attractiveness and, in turn, their worth. But for a Sigma female, none of this matters. She defines her own worth from within, which means she isn't interested in playing to an audience. She isn't performing for anyone, least of all men, and that shakes up the power structure that many men have relied on for validation themselves. When men encounter a woman who doesn't care whether they're looking or not, it challenges the narrative they've been told all their lives. They're used to their gaze holding power, to their attention being something that women seek. But when faced with a Sigma female who is indifferent to this dynamic, it makes them feel powerless. She's not impressed by the compliments, the stares, or the attempts to win her over. She doesn't adjust her behavior to make herself more appealing, because she doesn't need their approval to feel good about herself. That kind of self-assurance is rare, and it throws men off. This indifference isn't arrogance or disdain. It's simply that her sense of self doesn't hinge on what others think. She dresses for herself, not to impress anyone. She makes decisions based on her own desires and goals, not to fit into a mold that society or men might expect. This can make men feel irrelevant, because the usual dynamic of giving attention and expecting some form of gratitude or reciprocation just doesn't exist with her. She's not rude or dismissive. She's just focused on her own path, and that path doesn't require anyone's approval. For many men, part of their confidence comes from knowing that their gaze, their approval, holds power. It's a subtle, often unspoken transaction. Women seek approval, and men provide it, affirming both their attractiveness and their masculinity. But the Sigma female doesn't engage in this transaction. She's not looking to be affirmed by anyone but herself. And when a man realizes that his attention has no effect on her, it leaves him feeling unsettled. What is he supposed to do when the usual methods of flattery and attention don't work? How does he approach someone who doesn't need to be approached in the first place? This rejection of the need for male validation makes Sigma females appear untouchable, almost out of reach. It's not that they're intentionally distancing themselves, but their independence and self-assurance make them seem impenetrable. They aren't moved by compliments or efforts to win their favor, and that can make men feel like they don't matter. They're used to being in a position where their attention can make a woman feel special, but the Sigma female is already secure in who she is, and she doesn't need external affirmation to feel valuable. This can lead men to feel frustrated, even resentful. It's not because they dislike the Sigma female herself, it's because her lack of need for their validation leaves them feeling powerless. They don't know how to engage with her, how to connect on a level that makes them feel significant. The usual strategies, flattery, attention, validation, simply don't apply. And in a world where men are used to being the ones who give approval, encountering a woman who doesn't seek it can feel like an unsettling shift in the balance of power. The Sigma female's indifference to the male gaze is a quiet but powerful statement. She defines her worth and no one else. Number 7. A woman without fear of loneliness. Sigma females are completely comfortable in their own skin, and that makes them incredibly difficult to control. They're not looking for someone to tell them how to live their lives or what they should do. They aren't seeking approval, and they certainly aren't interested in being managed. This unshakable sense of self means that anyone trying to manipulate or control a Sigma female is in for a rude awakening. She knows her own mind, her own heart, and she's not easily influenced by external pressure. This can be a huge problem for men who are used to being in charge or having the upper hand in relationships. Most people, whether consciously or not, are influenced by those around them. In relationships, there's often a subtle push and pull where one person tries to guide the other, shaping their opinions, decisions, or even lifestyle. But the Sigma female doesn't play along with that. She's already set in who she is, and she has no interest in bending to fit someone else's mold. If someone tries to push her in a direction she doesn't want to go, she'll resist, firmly but calmly. There's no need for drama or arguments because, to her, the decision is simple. She won't do anything that doesn't align with her true self. This level of self-possession makes it nearly impossible to control her. A Sigma female won't be swayed by sweet talk, pressure, or emotional manipulation. She sees through those tactics quickly and responds with an unyielding sense of her own autonomy. When someone tries to control her, she simply steps away, refusing to engage in a battle for power because in her mind, she's already won. She doesn't need to fight for control over her own life. She's already in control. This leaves men who are used to more submissive or easily influenced partners feeling frustrated and powerless. For men who rely on being dominant in relationships, this lack of control is unsettling. They're used to steering the course, making decisions, and expecting their partner to follow along. But with a Sigma female, that dynamic doesn't exist. She's not looking to be led or controlled. She's an equal, not a follower. And if a man tries to impose his will on her, she'll walk away without hesitation. This isn't because she's cold or detached, but because she values her independence above all else. She's not willing to compromise her freedom just to make someone else feel more secure. What makes this even more challenging for men is that the Sigma female's strength is quiet, but unbreakable. She doesn't need to assert her independence in loud or dramatic ways. She simply lives her life on her own terms, and anyone who tries to interfere will quickly realize that they have no leverage over her. She doesn't need their approval, and she doesn't fear their disapproval. This makes her incredibly difficult to manipulate, because there's nothing they can offer or take away that will make her compromise who she is. Men who are used to controlling others often feel threatened by this kind of autonomy. They don't know how to handle a woman who doesn't need them to guide or influence her. The usual tactics, emotional pressure, guilt trips, even subtle power plays, don't work. And when a man realizes that he can't control a Sigma female, it forces him to confront his own insecurities. He has to ask himself why he feels the need to control her in the first place. And often, that's a question he's not prepared to answer. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Sigma females, hit that subscribe button for more compelling content. Join our community to stay updated and be part of the conversation. Your subscription keeps us bringing you fresh insights. Subscribe now and stay tuned. Thanks, damsels, for tuning in. See you in the next vid. Bye and stay blessed.